it records. So, I mean, all right, I've actually hit record. Hello, people. We are still in the process of making the soup, okay? Uh, Bear with us. Now, this for me is recording locally, but I think you can record locally too.
I have to request from the host. I've
Okay,
sent a recording request.
okay. Um, let's see. Apply these permissions to all future requests. Hey, what could possibly go wrong with that one? I mean, that that sounds safe. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
because absolutely, because you definitely want Matthew to record a conversation on Skeptics and Seekers and re-edit it so it's all different for Still Unbelievable
Well,
because I have
Matthew,
so much time on my hands. That is exactly the sort of thing I would do.
I mean, Matthew, whoever happens to intercept this feed, whatever, what could possibly go wrong? So, do you have the record ability now?
Try. Record to this computer. Request hosts start cloud recording.
Oh,
No,
do I
no, no,
need
no.
to?
Record. No, no. I'm recording.
Okay,
I
all right,
think. Yeah. It looks like I'm recording.
all right. Then,
Um.
from this
I,
point on, um, you're making your own edits, so try not to give the state secrets away. Um, so here's the thing,
yeah.
folks. Matt and I are here for a palaver
We
that
are.
we will do on a fairly regular basis. As you can see, this is a little bit more casual. I'm not introducing this thing as any particular kind of thing, cause
I am. Hello and welcome to another episode of Still Unbelievable.
skeptics
This
and
is
secrets.
Matthew, your regular host, and here with me, joining me for a beautiful conversation, is David from Skeptics and Seekers. How was that? Nobody will notice, will they?
No, I mean, especially the way I very clearly put in skeptics and seekers in there. They'll never hear your show's introduction. Because
Oh, there
technology
is
couldn't possibly fix that.
no, absolutely. Oh, if only there was a still small voice that could interrupt that for us.
I think that was it. Why
Yes.
does
So
God speak
you
with
were
a still
talking,
small
yeah.
voice?
Why
Because
does
when he spoke to Job, he was like shouting from the sky.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Um,
When I was in trouble with either of my parents, the still small voice was absolutely not the tone that was used.
no, no one uses a
When
still
they needed
small
my
voice.
attention. When,
When you're right. I mean, if it's in no, it's not a still small voice. It's at least an
yeah.
inside broadcast voice.
Uh-huh.
But a still small voice.
Still small voice.
I
Yeah.
mean, at that point, you don't know what you're hearing. You don't know who you're hearing. Um, you may be hard of hearing. I don't
Actually,
understand.
we do know what is being heard. It's a voice in the head. We know that bit.
Okay, if it's a voice in the head, can it be drowned out by other noises?
I guess so.
I mean,
I was
hearing happens in
trying to
the
say something facetious, but I was
yeah,
being too polite,
yeah,
too
no,
British on a Sunday
right,
morning.
no, I get it. I mean, I just fixated on the still small voice this morning for some reason. Um, and it just dawns on me that there's no situation where that seems to make any sense. If God speaks to me, let it not be some still small voice that I mistake for the normal voices in my head. Um, and if it's something that I'm not gonna mistake, why is it a voice at all?
Yep.
Why does it need to be a voice?
So, question, because it touches on a very topical subject. When Moses came down the mountain and there was that whole shenanigans with the golden calf, did God use a still small voice?
I don't know. I don't think
It's
they would
been
have
too
heard.
long since I've read that passage. I can't remember.
I don't think they would have heard it over the drunken revelry, honestly. So,
No. They were having too much fun to hear. That's your answer. They were having too much fun to hear the voice of God.
okay. So look. let's just jump right into a very serious issue. It has been plaguing me for several days, and I've been hoping to have a chance to talk it out with you because you have a very good head for this sort of thing.
Uh-oh.
Okay, where is my fucking gold statue? All right, I hear that we all get statues now. Where is my? No one has talked to me. No one has had me pose. Where is my statue?
So, sorry, I have a mental image. Can you just clarify your use of the word fucking in that? Is that just an expression of frustration at not having a gold statue, or is it a description of the activity of the statue?
That's the description of the statue.
Yeah, that is not the mental image I wanted. Guys,
Okay,
David does not need to be depicted with a 4 foot golden penis. I mean,
I
really,
four.
this is
I was
Sunday. This
four.
is Sunday morning. You know,
What are you
can we not
four?
have that in? Look, we're supposed to be having a minimum of a 1 hour serious chat here as part of this regular thing we're going to do, and we're already talking about golden sex. Come on, David.
Are we?
Really?
Is this really the world though that we live in? I mean, Trump receives
He's
a
Jesus,
gold
don't you know? He
statue.
healed
I
that
mean,
person in that AI image,
how do we?
rose them back to death, and now he deserves a statue for it. Come
How do
on,
you
can't a
get
guy
here?
get a break?
How do you get here, man? How do we? How does? It's like, oh, this is just a normal thing now. It's. Can you
Yeah.
imagine any American or British, because the British have been weird for a long time too, any American or British head of state besides a king, so you may not have quite as much history with that, a king or queen, because they be weird, um, receiving a golden statue of themselves in their lifetime.
No. And genuinely, and I mean this with all sincerity, this is not me being polemic at all. If such a thing were to happen here in Britain, there would be riots in the streets in London. Genuinely, there would be.
And genuinely, there should be. So I don't look. I know I'm a mindless radical that people can just dismiss most things that I say about politics. I'm sure, but um, it's just one of the things that I've been fascinated with for a long time, probably as long as my early 20s when I started thinking about it. When I was old enough to consider Hitler. Um, this is a man who, we think of as so evil. His name is a curse word, pretty much.
Hmm.
Um, it's a banned word on some platforms, literally banned. I think it's banned in Germany. um, they really want to distance themselves as far from the man and his insanity as possible. However, I used to spend quite a bit of time wondering how Germany got there. How
Hmm.
do you get to a Hitler in a fairly modern time? We're not talking about the Hans of China, samurai of Japan. We're not talking about those times. We're talking about in historical terms, fairly modern times. Things weren't so different that it shouldn't be a shock that you get a Hitler rising up. Germany was not a terrible country.
Hmm.
I mean, they were, a country in some trouble, perhaps. They were, countries go through periods like that. That's not unheard of, where Germany was at the time during the rise of Hitler. Mistakes were made. Shit happens. We get on track over a few decades. So it shouldn't be expected that you get a Hitler. And if you don't dive deeply into the minutia of the history in that period. Uh, you're just if you're reading history and then you happen along, oh, and Hitler. It does that's a huge jump.
Mm.
And you have to wonder how a thing like that happens. And since Trump 2, um, I have been saying, oh, that's how.
Yeah.
Um, and so there are some things that I would like to say, if you don't mind, that are vaguely historical, somewhat mansplaining, some of it probably wrong and overly simplified. But I want to trace this a little bit. And so the first ingredient, I think, is that you've got to have a country in a little bit of trouble. It may be economic trouble. It's probably how a lot of things start. A little bit of an economic crisis, a little bit of an identity crisis about who you are. You have to have some past where you feel like you are greater than what you are now, and you've got to have some bit of the population that is dissatisfied. So I think it has to begin there. And so when Trump started saying "Make America Great Again," that was a red flag. It's
Mhm.
by the way, in history, whenever leaders start talking like that, it's always a red flag. I contend. I contend that is never a good sign when you think that you were somebody and then you come to think that you're less than and you want to go backward to the time when you were more than. So any kind of major backward looking identity like that is a problem. So I think that is step number one, and then step number two, your middle section of your body politic. This is hard to talk about because we have some very specific divisions of government. So we have the people, and I'm going to put the people at the bottom instead of the top to understand this org chart a little bit. We have Congress. We have two houses of Congress, House of Representatives and the Senate. So we tend to shorten that all to Congress, the two houses of Congress. We have the executive branch, basically the president and his cabinet, and then we have the judicial branch. And for the sake of this org chart, I'm going to put the judicial branch below the president, so that we have two extremes. We've got the schlubs at the bottom, and we've got the focus of power on top. And when your middle branches of government, whatever they are, and so I'm trying to say this so that people from other countries who have different systems can kind of figure out what the equivalent would be in your systems, because I have no idea. So when the middle branches fail, that's your system of checks and balances. When you don't have a checks and balances system anymore, and you've got uh, the bottom and an overrepresentative top, where the power becomes centralized in the executive branch, you have the political ingredient for a Hitler or some type of dictator, because this is the primary job of these other two branches, to keep that executive branch checked. When it's not functional, executive branch runs rampant. One more element I want to throw in here is the oligarchs. All right. So the oligarchs, for anyone listening, and that sounds like a big word, um, here's how I understand oligarchy. First of all, every country, every nation has an oligarchy. It's the rich people who really, their purse strings control the show. Even when there is proper government, oligarchs own some part of your government. They just do. In our case, there are no oligarchs like tech oligarchs. Um, but they have somewhat become aligned more closely with the executive branch. And again, they don't get checked. So you've got an out of control executive branch. You've got all of the money that controls all of the industry in your company. It's your country. It's almost as powerful as the executive branch controlling every aspect of the military without the Congress being a part of it. So it's almost like that, um, but it's bad, almost worse. So you've got a concentration of power at the top. You've got an out of control oligarchy that gets pretty much whatever they want. You've got a middle section that is non functional and does not do their job. And you've got a growing dissatisfaction with the way things are, and you want to go back to an earlier period of time where you can puff up your identity uh, so that you can be once again the thing that you think of as great. The last thing that has to happen, and it's the thing that happens very naturally when you have all of those things, you identify the thing or things, the elements that are making you less great. And you know who it never is? It's never the executive branch. They were great all along. It's never the oligarchy. So they're part of the solution, not a part of the problem. So it's always going to be something or someone in the population. In Hitler's time, it was the Jews that were keeping the Germans from being great. But you could go back to any kind of dictatorship, and you will be able to fairly easily, I think, figure out who the group was, the elements were that were getting the blame for them not being great. We have a very conservative Christian run country. I would almost throw them in with the oligarchs. And so people who are anti evangelical Christian can be identified as the government's enemy. Family. You remember when family was strong? You know who's anti family? Gay people, trans people, just all of the people who are considered um, less than great. Immigrants, and especially a certain type of immigrants. Black immigrants, black people, in excuse me, in general. So all of these little groups that can be identified as not great making groups become the enemy. It doesn't take very many more turns of the wheel to start getting Holocaust like activities. We almost saw a little bit of it with the whole ICE immigration thing. That really got way out of hand. But I don't want to go much further than that. I just wanted to share some of these ideas of how Germany found themselves with a Hitler. Because you ask yourself, this along the way, didn't anyone say no?
Mm.
And so if you want kind of a real time how you get there, just look at America, for the last 8, 10 years. This is how you get there. This is how you get there.
And
Already we are at this place
yeah,
where sitting presidents get gold statues. And sane people are wondering, how did we get here? Play back the last 20 minutes of my monologue. This is how you get here.
yeah. And the UK is following your lead, I'm afraid. We've got a dissatisfied population. Everybody is blaming the immigrant for stealing all their money. And it's like, seriously, guys, just step back a little bit and well, no, the most needy, the most underprivileged people in our population are not the ones at fault here. Please get some fucking perspective.
They are
So,
incapable of dragging your country down. it's not. It's not. It's not
yeah,
sensible. It's not. They have no power. You
yeah.
know?
But it's all their fault. Yeah.
Do me a favor, Matt. Just educate me a little bit because once again, I only deal with real countries, so I don't know what happens with what's your country over there? Anyway, I don't know what happens there. Who in your country right now, who is alive today and in power, is the most likely candidate to have a gold statue of themselves erected?
I don't even want to say his name. People will know who I mean, and it's not Boris Johnson with the messy set of hair. It's a
Yeah, but what a
racist
statue that
shit
would have
turd.
been.
Yeah, yeah, it would have looked like Sonic the Hedgehog. No, the person I'm thinking of is a racist shit turd who likes to have pictures of himself drinking beer, and I do not want to say his name, but everybody knows who I'm talking about. He is the one, and it will be the ugliest statue. And do you know what? If he did have a statue of himself, gold or not, built in the UK, it would be defaced within a day with paint and rotten fruit and stuff. We are great at doing that kind of thing in the UK, but we also have a huge amount of influential voting public who are racist.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I think that the Trump statue will be defaced. Um, it probably has a lot of military protection around it, but I suspect that it will be defaced at some point, and this is just my wild ass guess. I think that when that happens, it's going to be called an act of treason,
Hmm.
and I think that it would actually be something that is up for the death penalty.
Wow.
Even
I
now, I believe that that is a set of events that is not only possible but likely to happen.
wow. Wow. The most perfect thing somebody could do to that statue was would find a safe place with a long line of sight, get a high-powered rifle and shoot its right ear off.
Nope, nope, nope. Okay, now some would call that making it more realistic. I get that, but nope. we're,
That would be such a beautiful thing to do to that
we
statue.
cannot. Nope. We will not be defacing the gold statue with a rifle. That reminds me too much of the end of Trump one term, where when they stormed the Capitol, many of the protesters. I mean, the cameras, the TV cameras, live TV cameras, are close enough to film them. They had uh,
Was it hang pence or something
yes,
like
they
that? They
had
had the
they had
gallows, yeah.
that nooses and such to hang the sitting vice president in effigy.
Yeah.
Um, and once again, you just wonder how does that happen? Even that, because people can be crazy. These are not government officials, but these are people acting on behalf of their favorite government official. And the moment Trump regains power, all of those people just get pardoned because he wanted
Yeah.
them to hang Mike Pence.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just
Yeah.
how do you get
And yeah.
Trump one the end of the term, and then people decide, yeah, a second go round of this would be good.
And let's not forget there was a genuine life-threatening attack on political elites with a hammer, and there was a genuine fatal attack on your political representatives with somebody impersonating a police officer and shot someone.
Oh yeah. So there was so much of that. I remember I just vaguely. I don't remember the names of the circumstances, but one of the a female congresswoman, a sitting female congresswoman, um, people had found her address and they were, coming to her house. A husband of one was killed because he happened to be home in that January 6th attack. Their main motive, they were looking for the Congress people. They were trying to get the Congress people. The Congress people were evacuated in time, but that's what they were going for. Um, so yeah, these are the times that we live in. I know that um, this is not the air that I breathe. It's not the air that I like to breathe. I focus on religious stuff, but it can't be separated. It's like technology. I'm a tech guy, but that can't be separated either.
No.
These were domains that used to kind of sort of exist in their own space, and you didn't have to cross pollinate, so much. But right now, religion is politics, and none of this
Mhm.
that's happening that we're talking about happens without some kind of religious context. And so, a few years ago, I think somewhere in Trump one, back when Tara was still running wild on the board, I just, I used to have a policy. Yeah, we're not doing politics. It's not a political board. And then it became apparent that it actually has to somewhat become a political board. And I've talked about some of this stuff way more than I wanted to, but still not in as much as it needed to be discussed. And so it feels like our community is a little bit out of touch. But I suppose I'm guessing that a lot of people in our community, you and me, and atheist YouTubers, Christian YouTubers, we're trying to keep some kind of wall of separation between the domains that is somewhat pointless, and at this point, it might even be harmful. Um, we have to talk about this sometimes, and
We
I guess
do.
this is my time to open up about some of this stuff.
And I think it's important that we acknowledge that. So, just for clarity, listeners, viewers, if I put the video up on YouTube as well, Dave and I are going to do this on a regular basis. It is going to be mostly about religion. There is going to be some irreverent humor in it. But right now, right this moment, in both of our nations and in other places across the globe, politics is quite genuinely a concern. And here in the UK, we've crossed a threshold where people in the UK, having looked at America and gone, thank fuck, my country's not like that, have now gone, oh fuck, my country's now like that. There is a political shift that is extremely rightward moving, and it leaves some people genuinely concerned for the safety of others. I don't want to give any specific information or detail, but I'm in a situation right now where I am aware of an asylum seeking family here in the UK who have sought asylum from a country that is a British protectorate. And they are in a very delicate situation. Currently, it's a mother and a teenage daughter who have been separated by our UK government by 500 miles because of a last minute decision by some fuckwit. And my wife and I are doing a little bit to help in that situation. Like I said, I'm not going to give any kind of specific details because it's a situation that makes me very angry. But this is the kind of politics we're in right now, where the most needy parts of our society are being actively hindered, and it feels racist to every bone in my body, and I am furious and I am angry about what's going on in this country, that the racists are running the show. And I am also scared about what the future might bring, because from all indications of history, this is not the worst it will get. And that angers and frightens me in equal measure because I don't know what the future brings and I don't like what I'm afraid of.
Yeah,
Sorry, I made it personal there. But it's when we only really feel it when it affects us personally. And now it's affecting me personally, and I am genuinely really feeling it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what I think that's what drives all of this is when we feel it personally. I did not care, for instance, about uh, gay people in general back when that was the fight, uh, because I mean, not me. So everybody's got troubles, brother. But you know, I know some gay people, and I got to know some gay people quite by accident. I mean, I wasn't seeking out gay people. I wasn't, going down the street and saying, "Are you gay? I need a gay friend."
Yeah.
This is not really how it happens. What you realize is that some of your friends, oh, they were gay and they were just in the closet. um, and I've got maybe a little bit more than that. In fact, I think I can. I think that I can probably say this, and if I can't, well, fuck it. I've got one of my oldest brothers gay and has been so for a long time. Um, and he has been out for sometimes, but sometimes it seems like, well, out sometimes, in sometimes. It depends on how well you know him. Then you know him, and if you don't know him, then he is very happy to let you think that he's not gay. So I mean, I don't think he is. Look. I understand all that. Okay, I get it. Um, no person is trying to, socially bury themselves. Uh, we're not seeking out um, persecution. Like some groups. I don't know a single gay person who wants to be persecuted. um, but so I've got some experience down that road. Is what I'm saying. And at some point, you realize, okay, the persecutors have it wrong. This idea they're trying to paint this idea of a not insignificant part of the population as somehow the problem or some problem. Let me explain to you in a very brief way exactly the amount of problem that gay people are in society. Zero.
Mhm.
Just zero. There is no societal issue caused by women loving women. In fact, when the camera is on and that beautiful intimate moment can be shared with perverts, it's a good thing for society. um that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying who might be a pervert on this call. I'm just saying it can relieve a lot of stress and tension. It's a beautiful thing. it's,
Oh,
it's, it's a lovely thing is all I'm saying.
I've
So
got. You're going to laugh at me for this, David. You so are. It's hilarious. Um, I've been announcing it on Still Unbelievable for months that I'm planning to move house, and I tried to. Last year, I spent most of last year, 2025, trying to build up a backlog of episodes on Still Unbelievable so that I could queue them all up, and then I could do the house move without having to worry about episodes and do that. Anyway, as reality has happened, my entire backlog has been used up. I'm back to literally only a couple of weeks away from having to do episodes to make them live. I hate that stress. And my house move is only just starting to get underway. So all that effort, all those announcements, the last half of last year have just gone to shit. But anyway, that aside, this is the official announcement. I am actually moving house this summer, 2026. It's going to happen, maybe July time. That's what I'm earmarking for. But we will see. Keep listening, and I'll tell you more details as it happens. But anyway, we've had some progress this week, and it turns out that we're buying a maisonette, which is a fancy word for a flat that's on two levels. And
so like a
the
townhouse.
yes, basically. But there is a ground floor flat stroke apartment which is in the same building that we are. Because of the way the building and the ownership of the building works, we have some responsibility for the grounds that are technically owned by the ground floor flat. But anyway, technicalities that are not required for this podcast. Anyway, we found out in the past week that the tenants of the ground floor flats are a same-sex couple. And my wife said to me yesterday, she said, you know what? I'm actually really glad that it's a same-sex couple that we're going because we're going to have some kind of relationship with them. Not in that kind of way. Get your minds out the gutter, people. But we're going to have communicate with them on a regular basis because of the relationship between the two flats. So we're going to have to develop at the bare minimum, a friendly, non-antagonistic relationship with the people who own that flat. So anyway, it turns out it's a same-sex couple. And my wife says to me yesterday, she says, I'm actually glad it's a same-sex couple because they're going to be more chill than heterosexual couple, and it'll be easier to have a productive, constructive relationship with them. And I said to her, yes, I agree. There we go. Laugh away. That is now the way we view same-sex couples in this country, and I hope that any same-sex attracted people listening to this are encouraged and complimented by that.
Yeah, I've had the uh, experience of knowing some same-sex couples, and frankly, it's so much more boring than you think. It's just a couple. That's just all it is.
Yes, I know.
There's no
They watch
drama.
TV, listen to music, cook together. I mean, wow.
So, so I mean, the boogeyman is just not that scary. Let's hang these people. They watched Friends.
Dear.
We can't
Oh,
have that.
no.
So, I know that there are some things that
We have a
you
list.
had on your list to talk about. Uh, but before we're done, you know me. Some
Oh, dear.
religion has to come into play.
Yeah.
So I think small pieces and bigger pieces. So might this be a good time to insert one of the smaller pieces? Um,
Yeah.
let's
Smaller
let's
pieces.
let's try this. The idea that you think that I have a small anything is hilarious. Um,
So long as it's golden, I don't care what size it is.
just call me Midas, my friend. Um, so so I've been having this discussion on the board with a new person. I never know with something like a discussion board whether it's okay to mention the name or not. I mean, it's publicly happening on the board. Is it's the person's name.
Skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Is that still the URL?
It is, in fact, skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Log into your Discuss account and discuss
And discuss
away.
away. Oh, you
Yeah,
see, I've got the. It's almost like I listen to your podcast every now and then.
I have no idea why you would do that. Um,
I
so,
know what you're going to say. Why do I listen? I just read the title and go, yep, I know how this one's going to go.
I mean, you bring it upon yourself, sir. Um, other people don't know any better, all right? But you listening is like the Trump 2 voters. You knew what you were going to get, and you did it
You
anyway.
went and got it anyway.
So, so the discussion has been actually something that I had been thinking about for a long time. And I had a fairly brief private exchange with Dale. I think that who knows, maybe we'll go public with it at some point. But the characteristics of God. You can pick any of the characteristics of God, any of his omnis, anything that we say this is a God thing. I contend is actually utterly contradictory. It's not paradoxical. It's contradictory. It cannot exist. It is the very proof that the God of the Bible cannot exist. And so the one that I am flogging these days is immortal. Uh,
Mhm.
God is supposed to be immortal, but there's a problem. God can die because he died.
But only for 3 days. Come on,
Not well.
it's not permanent.
I'm not giving him the 3 days. But even if it was one
Or is it
second,
two, depending on which version of the Bible you read?
yeah. Well, if you count the hours, it's maybe a little over a day and a half. But it doesn't matter. Before the weekend is over, he's popped up again. As we count time. But the point is, if he can die, the very definition of immortal is can't die. you know, so you can't have a can't die and can die in the same person. I mean, it's either he's immortal, God is immortal and can't die, never could die. Therefore, Jesus wasn't God. Jesus died, but God didn't. Or God is not immortal. He does have the possibility to die, and he died. Still God, he's just not immortal. There is a kind of a middle ground that is not sensible, but it plays into some of the other ideas as this goes along. When you look at other attributes of God, which is to say that, well, maybe God can just lay down any part of his nature that he wants to. So God has a nature, part of his nature is immortality, but he can lay down immortality. Now he's not immortal for a little while because he laid that down and he can pick it up again. Now I'm immortal again. So that itself is weird too. It's like when Jesus says, well, I don't know this or that. Well, God is omniscient. If Jesus is God, Jesus is omniscient, except when he lays down that part of his nature, now he's not omniscient anymore. And he can pick it up again anytime. Now I'm omniscient. At some point, it doesn't make any sense to say that God has a nature at all. Because at some point, we just get to God can't lie. Because that's a part of his nature. Except when he wants to lay it down, then he can lie. God can't do evil, except when he wants to lay that down, and then he can just fuck you up, and then he can pick up his good nature again. God is omnipresent. He's everywhere, except when he wants to be away from you, apart from you. Sin separates. So, I mean, I'll just lay down that part of my nature because I don't want to fuck with you. And then he picks it up again when he wants to be. You see how this works. So at some point, it becomes just utterly absurd to say that he has a nature at all, but just to stay focused, the little part, fool, you thought this was little. God, God is immortal. Who dies?
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
I've got a different question. If you've got multiple personality disorder and you kill one of those personalities, who's died?
I hate you so much. Okay. I thought that I had the level of hate that I had for you dialed in to precision, and now I've got to redo all the dials. So, believe it or not, I have considered the multiple personality idea. I am waiting for the interlocutor that I am having on the board. I'm going to pretend like he's a good, honest interlocutor. And so we'll see what the answer is. But part of the nuance that you can get into is, as a Christian, who died? Who do you say died? Was it the second person of the Trinity, the Logos? Did the Logos, the eternal Son of God, did he die? Or was it a new person that was created that we call Jesus, who is an additive part of the second person of the Trinity? And then the Jesus part died, but the second person of the Trinity didn't die. And then the Jesus part rose and is now somehow additively attached to the second person of the Trinity. So, what do you think? Who died?
And it was only his body, his spirit didn't die. He was off having an NDE somewhere, and then he got a
Well, he
new
was in
body
hell.
back.
He was in hell
Yeah,
preaching to the saints in hell.
so,
The grave. So,
yeah, which
who
bit
died?
died? So it wasn't even an entire death; it was just a shell death.
Well, right. So he takes a human suit, pretends to wear it, takes the human suit off. He's
Yeah,
still fine, and then he puts the human suit back on.
yeah,
Is he still wearing the human suit in heaven?
yeah.
Okay. So you're having some trouble with this. I see. This is not a thought that you are used to.
No,
Let me
it's
just throw
not.
in.
I'm
Uh,
just thinking, when the racists go to heaven and they see that the human suit is brown, not gleaming white with long flowing blonde hair. Sorry, so that's where my mind has just gone. It's probably not where you expected it to go, but that's where my mind went.
let's see. Let me adjust that hate dial one more notch. Okay. All right. I think I've got it dialed in now. Okay. So let me close this thought out. Since it has clearly blown your mind, let me just take the
Yeah.
last little one for
I'm
those.
so glad you weren't asking me these questions when I was an actual believer, because that would have been a problem. Now I'm just laughing at the absurdity of the whole thing, because there is no way to put it down that does not read as incoherent.
Right. So let me give you one more. And I'd love to hear back from some of the people. If you thought about this when you were Christians, what do you think? So this last one is a little bit nuanced, I admit, and maybe a little bit speculative. I'm not sure. It depends on how you were taught. So in the Old Testament, when Jacob fought with the angel, um, this is one of those places where the angel is written in Hebrew as the Lord, capital Lord. And there's this idea that whenever you see the Lord, that it's actually Jesus, or maybe the Holy Spirit, but it's some version of God incarnating there, um, as the Lord versus Lord, just a generic angel kind of thing. But that said, I don't care whether you think it was the Lord, second or third person of the Trinity, or an angel, just some divine spirit being from heaven. My question is, when you have these guys, another example would be the two angels that went to Sodom and Gomorrah and were sheltered in Lot's house. When you have these heavenly beings come to earth, they're putting on flesh bodies, assuming that they go back to heaven, they're taking off flesh bodies. Is that a resurrection? Is that a death? Do they die when they leave earth and go back to heaven because they've sloughed off the fake flesh body? No one talks like that. No one thinks like that. So is that all Jesus did? Was just kind of incarnate, put on a flesh body, take off a flesh body, put on a flesh body? Or is there in some way some kind of, death? And for a bonus one, because I know you don't have an answer for that one, why did the Holy Spirit need to impregnate Mary? Okay, so understand, if you think that Jesus is the second person of the Trinity, he already exists. Why do we have the Holy Spirit involved at all? Does the Holy Spirit go and slurp
Have
up
you not seen
Jesus?
Ghostbusters? That's what all spirits do.
Okay, so the Holy Spirit comes to earth. He has this machine that sucks down second person of the Trinity, and then he reverses the vacuum and shoves it in Mary, which seems dumb. Even if you have some kind of picture like that, Why do we need the Holy Spirit here to do that? Jesus can incarnate on his own. He doesn't need the Holy Spirit involved. Why does the Holy Spirit need to come upon Mary? Just leave those words alone. They're in the Bible. Why does the Holy Spirit need to be involved in this transaction? It's not his seed. It's not even his quote unquote spirit that's going in Mary. It's Jesus. So did Jesus stop existing as the spirit person in heaven and then get shoved into Mary? Or is this some separate seed from the Holy Spirit, which is not the second person of Jesus, who then takes on human form? What the hell is going on? This is so unexplored. It's so unexplained
Yeah.
as to be
Well,
utterly absurd.
they had to avoid the time travel dilemma of Jesus being his own father. So it has to be the Holy Spirit.
Let me see. Hey, dial. Okay. Just a little bit. A little nudge right there. Okay.
We're going to be accused of not taking this seriously enough, David.
I'm taking it as seriously as I can possibly take it. In fact, more seriously. So, people, when you write in with your answers and, while you're cursing me as an antichrist, do please include the detail of when Jesus was on earth as a flesh thing, was he also in heaven as a spirit thing? Kind of two places at once.
That was
Um,
what he sacrificed. You know, this whole big thing about sacrifice is permanent. It was a permanent sacrifice of his human flesh suit.
it was okay. So anyway, that's me being short on theological corner. Okay, it doesn't get any shorter than that. Um, but I'm
No,
laying this.
is this a Skeptics and Seekers Sunday sermon shorts? Is that what this is?
No, I'm not going to go for 2 hours. What are you? What are you nuts? Look, when I first started the shorts, the goal was 3 to 5 minutes. A 5 minute short
Uh,
was like that
I
was
can't
going to be
remember the
really
last
long.
5 minute one you did.
I can't remember getting out of the intro before 5 minutes. So by the time I read the title of the post, 10 minutes has passed.
Yeah.
But that said, there you go, folks. You've got uh, all the elements of that particular argument of immortal versus mortal, that contradiction. We're probably not going to actually get there in the conversation that I'm having with the person on the board, but if you kind of want to
Interesting.
see all of the steps that will spool out over time, there's a quick list of them. Uh, Matt, it's your topic, and if you think that's the only theological topic I brought, you are high and
Yeah.
drunk,
No.
sir.
Well, I I did want to show a book that I've been reading because one of the things I did last year, 2025, was I read more books in 2025 and interviewed more authors than I have in any year so far, which is still unbelievable. This year is going to be fewer than last year, but anyway, that's the point. But there is one book I read last year. We're going to get to that because I've not interviewed the author about it, so I wanted to flag that up here. But before we get to that, because that's going to be another serious theological discussion, let's go to something light-hearted. David, did I tell you that I'd done some ancestry DNA testing?
Um, I
No, I
didn't
didn't.
I didn't know that you were going to publicly talk about the fact that it kind of turns out you're half moose. But
I
if you're comfortable with it, I some of my best friends are half moose. So I mean,
I tell you what, it makes for some very interesting hats when it comes to the winter. So my parents-in-law, they bought Sarah and myself DNA testing kits for Ancestry for Christmas. So we did a whole spit in the tube and stir it up and shake it about and try not to contaminate it, send it off, and then
and then see if
waited a
it
couple
turns
of months.
pink. And
Yeah,
yep,
that all the thing, yeah, the
yeah.
big gender
Mhm.
reveal thing and all that. So we got our results back about 6 weeks ago now, and we've loaded them all up onto Ancestry, etc. And it says these are the people that you're related to, etc. I go down that first 10 people on the ancestry list, and I'm like, don't know who they are, don't know who they are, don't know who they are. And out of literally the top 10 people, about one person I knew who they were, and nobody else I know who they are. So anyway, just to expand the story and expand the build up a little bit, my paternal grandfather, my dad's dad, we have no idea who his father is because he's the youngest of multiple siblings, and the father of all his older siblings died before he was born. So his mother, by the time he was born, was a single mother with about 6 or 7 children, and he came along 8 years after the previous youngest one. So we've always known that his father is unknown. And I thought that maybe this process would connect me through DNA to other people and might actually be able to work out who my paternal great grandfather is. I thought it'd be an interesting exercise. Okay, it won't really achieve anything metaphysically, but at least it's knowledge that we can plug into the family tree and just know something. So I'm thinking maybe some of these people match. And I get a message from one of them before I've even had a chance to absorb this list. And he basically says to me, "Hello, Matthew. I'm wondering why we're connected as second cousins on Ancestry. I have no idea who you are. Apart from my immediate family, you're my next closest relative according to DNA. Who the fuck are you?" And I'm thinking, okay, this is interesting. This is a hit. Maybe I'm getting the answer sooner than I expect. Anyway, long story short, it turns out that this guy is not connected on my father's side at all. He's connected on my mother's side. And I'm like, okay, this is a bit more interesting because my mother is an only child. She comes from a very highly religious family. Her father is one of two siblings. We know who their father is. One of those siblings, so my grandfather's sister, she was a missionary in Zambia. And yes, that is how I ended up growing up in Zambia because of that missionary connection. I've got second cousins who are still connected to missionary work in Zambia. So that's the kind of picture of my mum's side of my family. And my mum's mum, I think, is a third of four siblings. And again, very religious family. So I'm thinking, okay, this doesn't really make any sense how you come from my mum's side of the family and can be so closely connected because I know who all those people are. We've got quite a close connection, unless it's from one of my grandmother's siblings, but the name didn't work out. So we do some investigation and do some work, and he gives some names to me of potential relatives, and we can't work it out. And eventually, his daughter says, "Hang on a minute. Back in 1914, your great grandmother lived 2 streets away from my great great grandfather or something like that." And that's the kind of the connection we've made it. We've worked out that my mum's mum, so my great grandmother on my paternal side, was lived a couple of streets away from one of this guy's relatives. And that's the only way we're connected. So we do small thing. And anyway, long story short, my mum's mum, the third of four siblings, is not the daughter of the man who everybody thinks was her father.
Huh.
And this is the highly religious Christian side of my family, the side of the family that spawned missionaries and everything. Now, for context, we're talking 1914. This is the year that World War One started. And when we look at the history and look at the movements, there are some odd events happening in that family, including relocation to Scotland for a couple of years and then relocation back to the Birmingham area, which is where they lived. So there are some definitely odd things. And I had a long chat with my brother about it. My brother said, "Did Grandma ever know?" And I said, "I don't know. I wish my mum was still alive so I could have this conversation with her because it's hilarious from me being one generation removed from all of this, but it is a scandal. It is a scandal for that period of time. It is a scandal for 1914 for a woman with 2 children to have a third child from somebody who is not her husband. This is scandalous. We know this, and yet it's the religious side of the family that spawned this mystery. And I'm not bothered by it. If I was a Christian, I might still have been bothered by it. Somebody who knows my family very well, when I first told them this news, said to me quite bluntly, I said, "I'm sorry, but there's no way on this earth that your wonderful grandmother, who was a deeply godly woman and from the family that she came from, there is no way that she is the product of an illicit affair." And I'm like, I'm sorry, the DNA doesn't really lie here. So
I
that's my fun story of the day, David. I'm sorry I didn't make it as funny as you might have liked me to have made it, but
no,
that's
no,
my experience of the last 6 weeks.
that is okay. I feel like I need a full disclosure moment here.
Okay.
Full
Can I just
disclosure.
say before you carry on, I'd just like to answer because there is an obvious potential cloud hanging over this, and this is about consent.
Right. Well,
Because
I
there
was
is
going
a,
to ask you some things about it, so I wasn't going to
yeah,
change the subject
yeah.
at all.
So there is a possibility here that this was a non-consensual interaction. I have
Yeah.
no idea whatsoever. My only hope is that she had fun doing whatever happened that spawned my grandmother. I hope she had fun. It would be distressing to me if it was a result of a non-consensual interaction, but I have no idea of what the facts are. I just hope she had fun.
Yeah.
Right, carry on.
All right. So, I don't know a lot of people personally who've done the whole ancestry thing. I know that this is something that's usually done by Mormons deep
Yeah,
down somewhere because religiously the ancestry matters to them
yeah.
in a way that it doesn't matter to other religions. And so, for those of you who are wondering why things like 23andMe exists, it probably goes back to cause Mormonism. So that's a little fun fact for you. But so the disclosure that I wanted to give before I ask the question so that people understand, I've never been remotely curious about my ancestry. If someone gave me a kit, I doubt I would use it. Um,
Mhm.
so honestly, don't give me a kit. Cause I don't care. I actually kind of buy into the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation between any people on Earth. So at some point, we're all related to Kevin Bacon. So
Hallelujah.
I at in especially where I come from in the South, and black person in the South, it's very easy to predict that I come from some version of the slave trade.
Mhm.
But then you've got to ask, well, but how did the people who were sold in Africa to white slavers get to Africa? Were they born there? Were they? Because Africa, had been conquered by the last 100 people who visited. So I mean, when you've got a world as ours where there are conquistador um, factions, kind of like ours, Matt, where we have expanded and colonized by
Mhm.
force a lot of Christianity. So you go into some of these parts of the world, um, and you think that, okay, well, that's my pure ancestry. There's no pure ancestry. I think the closest thing to pure ancestry is when you get to maybe China, some of the older places. Out there, I'm not sure, but any place that has ever been conquered by some other place, it all becomes kind of circular, I think, at some point.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you and I are probably long lost brothers, not without as many degrees of separation as you think. And then there is, I'm just going to use the word because I know it's nasty, but I don't want to cede the language completely to political correctness. So, trigger alert: rape culture in uh, our ancestry is rampant, and so you alluded to a possibility,
Mhm.
but in my background, it's a definite. It's not a possibility. It's simply how a lot of us were spawned. It's just
Yeah.
a fact because slave culture is rape culture.
Mhm.
You can't separate those two things out. So when you're walking around in the South, your assumption should be that the person you're talking to, whatever color they are a much closer ancestor to you than you think. So
Mhm.
my assumption is just why I don't feel the need for a test, it's not going to tell me more than I can that than we can intuitively assume because we know history.
Mhm.
In your case, it may not quite work that way, but I would still say that your connections and ties with some king or other, it's not speculative. It's almost certain.
Yeah.
Someone like
It's
Genghis
just a case of
Khan.
how, yeah, it's like
It,
how many, it's not a case of am I? It's a case of how many generations am I?
yep. Um, that's just that's
Yeah.
ancestry, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have the Mormon need to know the specific ancestry. It's that's not important to me. And so when I think about what the kind of DNA test could tell me, there is nothing that it could tell me that would be surprising to me. It's also
Mhm.
there's also nothing that it's going to tell me that's going to help me pay my mortgage
No,
next
no,
month, and
no.
so I've just not had that curiosity, but I'm also one of those people whose direct ancestry is so fucked up that there's nothing that a test can tell me that would be remotely interesting or surprising at all. So that said, when you find that, oh, also I've been in the church forever.
Yeah.
So if you talk about uh, people having children out of wedlock, whether it was consensual or non-consensual, you know that there is a certain percentage of that among religious people,
Yeah.
especially in the bad old days where it was so male dominated that women were still little more than slaves,
Mhm.
um, religiously. So that said, you have learned something that for me, I've just always assumed. What do you feel about that? Because you must feel something. For me, I never had the naivete so that something like that would surprise me. I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm just saying that
Mm.
that wouldn't surprise me. It would surprise me if it wasn't the case.
Yeah.
What does it feel like to find out though that you are not of exactly the line that you thought you were?
I'll be brutally honest. It is a non-event in that kind of grand scheme of things because it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change the personality that I am. It doesn't change the character I have, and it doesn't change any of the values that I see around me. It doesn't change the people that I love who are my family, who are alive around me. So it doesn't change any of that. Well, it obviously has a change in terms of the information that I have available to me. How does it change me emotionally? My first response was, "Oh, this is great! I've got a mystery to solve. I've got something to talk about part of my family which I just thought was average and boring." So there's certainly an excitement and a wow, this is great kind of thing about it. Sitting with it longer, certainly if I was still a Christian, it would bother me an awful lot more. Maybe even maybe even feel a bit scandalized by the shock of it. But I don't feel any of that. And of course, that person that I whose comment I referred to earlier, they are Christian and knows the Christian heritage of that side of my family. And their initial response was a bit of scandalized. Sorry, I refuse to believe that that happened to that individual in your family. This person who knew my maternal grandmother and knew her as a wonderful, gentle, kind, godly woman, the kind of typical person of that generation you would expect to see in the UK. So they found that quite scandalizing for her. It doesn't change how I feel about that grandmother. That grandmother is still a wonderful grandmother to me. I still cherish all the memories I have of her. It hasn't changed any of that one single bit because it didn't change as far as I'm aware, never changed her personality, never changed her character. So none of that, none of what really matters has changed. Now that I've sat on it for about 6 weeks, it's like I do wonder what the story is there. Clearly there is a story there. The world politics was going to shit. Doesn't it always? In 1914, her father-in-law, her husband's father, sorry, yeah, one of her husband's parents had died. I can't remember which one now, whether it was mother or father, had died a few months about 9 months before my grandma was born. So I'm wondering if that's a clue to what was going on. So there is clearly a story there. And if you wanted to collect the facts of what happened about the family movements, about who was alive, who died, about world politics, there is probably a reasonably realistic narrative that you could create from those facts. And I find that part of it intellectually fascinating, but I'm not really emotionally engaged with that from a horrific point of view. I do find it, as now that I'm atheist, I do find it ironically hilarious that it's the Christian side of my family that this happened to, the most Christian side of my family this happened to. There is a atheistic glee, if I'm allowed to use that phrase, that I get from this. And I kind of enjoy telling it as though it's, oh wow, look at this horrible thing that happened to the Christians in my family. There's a little bit of me that gets a glee from telling it like that. But there is a more serious side on this family, and this is there are two other people involved in this story who are alive today. One is the gentleman that originally contacted me. He didn't know who his father was. And this connection to me has helped him to confirm his suspicions on who his father was. We've joined the dots, and he is now more confident in the person who he thought his father was, because until this point, until he connected with me, he didn't know for certain with who his father was. He was fairly sure he knew, but he needed something more. And this connection to me via DNA has helped him to improve the certainty he has for who, the confidence he has rather, for who he thinks his father was. And then there's a third person that's connected to both of us, somebody who is adopted. And that individual has connected to us through DNA. This person is adopted, has waited till their adoptive parents have died, and has now started looking at who their family heritage is. And that has connected this individual to myself and this other person who connected to me. So the three of us together have connected, and we've drawn a little bit of a family tree to who we think the people we are connected to. And again, that has helped this original person who contacted me to confirm who he thinks his father is. And so for him, this has been a really critical and important step. For him, this has been emotional because it's validated the hard work that he and his daughter have done to try to track who his real father is. And for him, I'm happy. For him, I'm emotionally, contentedly relieved because it's done something very real and very emotional for that individual. So in the bigger picture things, I don't actually give a fuck about the story and the scandal in my family because it doesn't change anything for me, but it does change something for somebody else who needed answers and was emotionally connected to those answers.
If you're out there, your ancestry is very important to you. Leave a comment. I'd love to know. I'd love to hear your story. I guess this is one part of humanity that I guess I'm disconnected from. I mean, my experience in the church, very conservative evangelical church, for most of the time of my growing up, there have always been teens and preteens turning up pregnant. Always. Sometimes it's the elder's daughter or the elder's son. Sometimes, very scandally, is mixed race. Because the thing that defeats racism is the sex drive. Because the sex drive knows no racism. Especially among guys, but it's also true among women. When your hormones are going, you will fuck a duck. All right. I'm just, you know what? There's no racial barrier that can defeat human hormones. I'm just going to say that right now.
Damn it, David! Why are you doing this to me on a Sunday morning? Shit.
I'm just saying. And so the idea of mixed race relationships being somehow new and scandalous, even in the South, that's a story as old as time, bro. And it's old as time in the church. It's always existed. And the South has had laws on the books. We still might that make mixed race relationships illegal. But from the
Yeah.
time of slavery, women slaves were sex slaves. Bruh,
Yeah.
what do you think they were? And it wasn't black people owning black women. You know, they were lucky if they could get some of that. That's so the mixture, the genetic mixture in the South means that you are very likely closely related to anybody you happen to see, white, black, or duck. You are very closely related to that person. It should never surprise you of whatever connection you have because we are all products of cousining. Every one of us is just part of our thing. And so for me, emotionally, the emotional ties that I've had have been less to my biological family, which I have ties to. Don't get me wrong, I'm still human, but always equally much, or if not more, to the one or two close friends that I considered family. And for me, just considering someone family is equally as valid as whatever blood runs through your veins.
Mhm.
And if you just randomly consider someone family in the South, you're probably right anyway. So, I've been one of those people who I guess never felt the whatever emotional truth comes with blood is thicker than water. Um, it's never been thicker than water for me. It's all water and it's all
Yeah.
blood.
I get you. I understand you. So as David said, this will be up on the Reason Press YouTube channel, link in the show notes if you're watching it anywhere else. And comment in the comments under the YouTube down there. Yeah. If I put this video up, I don't know what I'll do. But yeah, if you've got a story about this, if you've got experience in this, put some comments down. Connected to this whole DNA thing, David, one of the features of the Ancestry DNA is you get a list of traits. I think it's about 97 traits, and it tells you whether you're more or less likely to connect with one of these traits. So I've done a 20-minute video as we're talking today on Sunday the 10th. It's going live at some point this afternoon if it's not live already. So by the time you're listening to this, it will be live already. If you want to chuckle, go and watch that video. I've done a 20-minute video of me going through all of these traits and scoring them on a yes, no. It's complicated, and basically the headline spoiler is it's about a 50% hit rate, 60% I think hit rate on the traits. So far lower than you might think
So,
in
what,
terms
what
of
kind of
the
traits?
accuracy.
Give me an example of some of the traits you're thinking
Some of the
about.
traits, whether I'm more or less likely to drink a lot of coffee, whether my index finger is longer than my ring finger, whether I have dimples in my cheeks, whether I'm likely to get an alcohol blush if I drink alcohol, whether I'm left foot dominant or right foot dominant, a whole variety of things like that. Some are subjective, some are a little bit more objective, attached earlobes kind of thing. I've got my headphones on, so you can't cheat by looking at this video. Go and
Oh,
watch the
wait a minute,
other
those are
video.
headphones.
How fuck off,
Okay.
you bastards. So yeah, and hilariously, one of them is whether or not I'm a follower of fashion, which is
Okay. I don't understand two of the ones you mentioned. The last one, obviously, I don't know what genetics can tell you that, and I don't know what genetics can tell you whether you're going to be a coffee drinker or not. How is that really? Is our DNA so full of junk that
that you
that our
can
preference for
they
coffee can
apparent
be there?
yeah, the metrics is clearly people who report liking lots of coffee have these kinds of indicators in their day, and then they follow up in a. It's something like that. Again, if you know these things, please comment in the video below, or go and find my original video and comment in that one. It would be really fascinating to have somebody who knows how these things work to put some comments. I really would appreciate it. Yeah, who knew that apparently Both the coffee one and the fashion one from memory, I think, were wrong anyway, which is just double funny.
Well, maybe they
But
weren't
there we
wrong.
go.
Maybe you're in self-denial. Okay.
Clearly, I avoid coffee despite drinking it, and I follow fashion despite not following fashion.
Just
Yeah.
embrace the pink tutu, okay? You
Oh
know
man,
that you've been looking at it in the store every time you pass it. Stop denying yourself.
it's not pink, it's salmon. Please
Okay.
get your colors right.
Okay. In other words, pink. Um, so,
Salmon! God's sake.
like I spent a lot of time in the Northwest. I've eaten a lot of salmon. Hey, people, it's pink. Right?
So,
It's